All right, so like I said, we're going to be taking a look at the sketch within the iPad version. So this is just my kind of disclaimer here about MICA. One of the things that I always like to tell people about MICA is that it is a great field service tool. And part of the reason that so with that being so Gary, yes, if it is, so a lot of the material will still apply to you, but you will not see it in the Android platform. Unfortunately, the only thing that I can mirror is going to be Apple devices. But like I said, if you want to stick around, just kind of get some general knowledge on the sketch, that function, most of the functions are going to be the same, just kind of where you press is going to be a little bit different. It's kind of the same thing with any phone. You can make a phone call with every phone, but some of the ways that you answer and hang up are going to be a little bit different. All right, so with that being said, the reason why we do it on a tablet is just because imagine trying to sketch on a phone. It would be almost impossible to do, and if you did, you'd have to have some pretty good eyesight and probably some pretty nimble fingers to be able to get the sketch to be what you wanted. So our recommendation here at NextGear is that day one, going out to do the initial readings for the loss are going to need to be done on a tablet, just because you do have a larger format to be able to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and just start this loss. So I'm just going to hit start. And I've already got a trip created. And now we're just going to come over to the sketch. All right. So one of the things about the sketch that I think a lot of people don't realize that you can do is that from the sketch here, if you are using an iPad, I know some people get a little bit freaked out because they go, maybe I'm not great at sketching. I don't necessarily want to do it on site. Or maybe I'm sending a new hire out. I just need them to get the room dimensions for me. And then maybe we're sending someone out, later that day to actually place the equipment, to actually do the sketch, depending on what your business model is. There's a couple of different ways that we can skin this cat. So where I'm actually going to come in the sketch first is I'm just going to come over here and tap on where it says input dimensions. And really what input dimensions is going to allow me to do is build out any rooms that I have in this loss. So for example, one of the things that I always tell people, especially as we're starting to do, kind of think about our workflow within MICA, is, if we arrive on site, probably the next thing we're going to do is get a work authorization signed. And then I'm probably really going to start just taking some inspection photos around the house, correct? So I want to be able to see all the damaged areas, maybe the source of loss, pre-existing damages, all that kind of good stuff. So it's not necessarily needed that I need just, a whole lot of information about the dimensions of the room to start building that out. So what I can do is I can just build the rooms, and then I can come back and add those measurements later. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here real quick, hit the plus sign, and start adding the rooms. So you can see when I hit the plus sign here, now I get a drop down here, and this is going to allow me to actually start labeling these rooms. So I can always hit the I right there to be able to select between all of the different kind of preset room names that we have within MICA. So it's a pretty intense list of the different options that we have. So it's pretty comprehensible. So comprehensive, not comprehensible, sorry. So I'm going to come in here and select my kitchen. So I'm just going to say that this is a kitchen. And if I need to, I can come in here and change the length, width, and height of the room here, and that will update, the linear foot, square foot, cubic foot that is in this room. Now, one thing to keep in mind as you are building it out using kind of this input dimensions here is this option here that says number of obstacles. So I always feel like people don't always get the most out of obstacles that they can. So essentially an obstacle is anything that is changing air movement in a room. So if there's anything greater than 18 inches, so an inset or an offset that potentially, if we're not kind of in a square box, could potentially stop that airflow from kind of going in a circle. So anytime we are adding a room in here, I just want to make sure that I'm coming in here and adding those obstacles, because MICA is just really pulling the information for the square footage. So it doesn't necessarily know if there is truly an offset to be able to really account for. So essentially, I'm going to add this kitchen here and just kind of stop there with my input dimension. So the nice thing about doing it this way is that, and this really doesn't have too much to do with the sketch, but you can see as I'm building this out, it does automatically create that photo album called kitchen. Now, there is kind of a method to my madness of why I did put this in. So part of the reason why I wanted to kind of show you this is to say that I don't have to truly sketch this out to kind of get started. So if your workflow is maybe to send somebody initially to, maybe just put in the rooms, to just start putting in, taking pictures, get the work authorization signed, and then you have, basically someone going to sell the job, and then you have somebody else coming to actually do the true mitigation part, this will help you. And part of the reason why I bring that up is because one of the things that you're going to be able to see if we are using that input dimensions is that you can see up here there's an area called unmapped areas. So it's letting me know that there's already an area called the kitchen that we haven't added to our sketch. So what's nice about it is that if I have somebody going around the loss and maybe there's 4 or 5 different rooms that we're just kind of doing the initial scouting of, I'm not too worried about dimensions. It kind of gives whoever's going back kind of that list of what the different rooms are that I should be kind of working in. So what I can do now is, let's say I want to start to work on this kitchen. So all I would have to do to be able to kind of start working on this is I'm going to come down here, tap on where it says RM, and this is going to open up all of my different rooms. Now, we do have just kind of the original kind of OG kind of square rectangle right here to be able to start dropping rooms in. And we also do have some custom shapes in here. So some very basic common room dimensions that we can kind of use as a good starting point. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tap on where it says room right there. And now I can just tap directly on the sketch pad here. So if I'm tapped on this sketch, you can see that it's just placed in an area called room. So I'll tap off of it to be able to see that room. And then you can see that all 4 walls are kind of 12 foot long. All right. So I'm going to tap off of that room there. And what I want to do now is I want to bring in the dimensions and information that is found in this unmapped area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my finger and kind of place it right here in the little crosshair, and I can just drag this into the room name. So you can now see that the room has now been updated with kitchen. And if I had put any measurements into that input dimension screen, it would automatically change the dimensions of this particular room. Now, also, if I tap just kind of right in the middle of the room, this will bring me back into the ability to kind of edit just this room. So depending on kind of where this little cursor is that you see on my screen, this is telling me what I'm kind of interacting with for this room. So right now, I'm interacting with kind of the room itself. But if I tap kind of up here at the very top, you're going to see that's going to move to that wall. And I can tap kind of around here to be able to interact with all of the different walls that I want to, okay? So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in here and just tap right on the room. And by tapping on that room, I'm now going to be able to hold that crosshair, and I can move this around if I need to, if it makes more sense to me. And also, every time I kind of tap everywhere, you're also going to see this lovely little gear right here. So what that's going to allow me to do is this is now going to kind of give me a menu of different things that I would be able to do here. So we're not going to go into each one of them just right now, but we'll kind of hit these as we're going through the training. But if I need to make any edits to anything about this, I can hit the little edit right there, and you can see I can come in here, change the room name, also change the height of the room, change the thickness of the walls if I need to, and also add any additional obstacles. So as you can see, very easy for me to be able to add these different areas in. All right, so now that I've got my kitchen in there, so you can see that's just kind of a easy kind of square right there. So probably going to have a little bit more, pizzazz to that kitchen. So what I'm going to do now is, let's say I want to change some of the dimensions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap kind of on this right wall right here. So let's say that I want to lengthen this room out. So very easy for me to be able to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my finger and start to pull that wall across to get it to the size that I want. So you can see it's very, very simple for me to be able to change those room dimensions. Now, as you are kind of dragging it out, sometimes it just depends on yourself. Sometimes it can be, a little bit finicky as we're starting to get things in, especially if I'm trying to get something just precise. So you may want to have, the ability to go a little bit quicker. Just say, I want to enter in the dimension myself. I don't want to have to sit here and kind of monkey with it. So what you can actually do is, instead of using your finger to kind of move things up and down, left and right, whatever the case may be, I can always click in the dimensions right here and change what the wall length is. So if I'm coming here and I want to say that's going to be 25 foot, you can look and see that I made the change to that 25-foot wall. Now, I'm going to say that I want to undo this because that kind of looks funny, and that's not exactly what I wanted to do. I probably wanted both walls to go to that 25-foot length. So what I can do to undo this is I'm just going to come up here, hit undo. That kind of takes me a step back. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click into here and say, all right, let's go to 25 foot. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to unlock those dimensions. So what that's going to do is that's going to allow me, if I say 25 foot, you can see that it has now changed both of those dimensions to be that 25 foot. So this way I don't have to go into each one of these. So if there's a corresponding wall kind of across that you want to change, just unlock that so that way it kind of affects the entire shape. Okay, all right, so now that you kind of get the gist of how we can start to, manipulate the walls, let's start adding some sex appeal to this room, okay? So what I wanna do here is, let's say that in this kitchen, maybe there's a door to the outside. Maybe my garage is kind of over here, and maybe there's a small little mud room, kind of an offset here that I want to account for. So what I'm gonna be able to do to account for that is I'm gonna come down here and just tap on where it says OF. So OF stands for offset. So once I tap on that OF right there, now what I can do is I can just tap on any wall that I want to add that to. And it's going to ask me, do I want to add this to the bottom, center, or top of this screen? So let's say that I want to add that to the bottom, and it's just going to put in a predetermined kind of offset here. So what I can then do is, just like what we had talked about before, is I can change any of the walls to meet the dimensions that I need to. Now, you can see it's currently kind of an offset, but if I need to change this, I can always, come in here, make it an inset, just depending on what the shape of the room is. Now, if I'm starting to kind of look at this and kind of say, okay, it's getting the shape I need, but maybe I need it to flip, 90 degrees. Once again, I'm just going to come in here and say, all right, here in the room, so I'm just going to tap back in the room, hit the little gear icon again, and then I could come in here and start to come in and hit this little button that says 90 degrees. And literally what that's going to do is that's just going to flip that room 9 degrees for me. So if I wanted to go kind of all the way around, I would just hit that again to be able to get to the dimensions that I want. So you can see, pretty easy to get in here and start manipulating that room. All right, so I've got small little offset here. And like I said, that's kind of maybe the entrance from the garage. So I want to be able to say, okay, how do I actually get in this room? All right, so then what I can start to do is add some doors to this room. So to add a door, I'm just going to hit the DR button for door, tap on the wall where I want to add the door, and it's just going to add a basic door. Now, just like with anything else, I can use the crosshair here to be able to move this up and down that wall. Now, what I can also do here is, if I hit the little gear, remember this is kind of our options tool, is I'm going to come in here and hit the little edit pencil. And just like with any of the walls, there may be, the opportunity here for me to be able to say, okay, how wide is this door? So if I need to change how wide that door is, it's just this door that I put in is a standard just 2 by 8 inch door. I can always change the dimensions of the door. Also, I can change where it actually starts on that wall. So if I want it flush with the wall, which probably not going to do since there's probably going to be some casing around it, I could put it directly up the wall, or if it's, a foot off of the wall, I can change where I need this door to start just by hitting the little eye right there and changing that information. Also, I can change the height of the door as I want. And the last thing that I can also do here is I can change that passage type as well. So if this is not just your standard old everyday door, maybe it's a sliding door. I don't know why you would have a sliding door to your garage, but let's say that it is. I can now hit save right there, and it's just going to change the icon to kind of match what you're used to seeing for those sliding door icons. So very, very easy to be able to change that information. All right, so now that we've added the door here, we probably need to add a couple of different rooms in here. So one of the things that maybe this kitchen opens up to is going to be maybe a living room right here, okay? So with that being said, probably with that kitchen, maybe there's just a case opening, maybe just kind of right here to be able to say, all right, it's kind of a missing wall. There's nothing kind of hanging out right there. So what I can do is instead of, adding a door here to say there's an opening, I can actually say that there's going to be a missing wall. So if I tap the MW right there, that's for our missing wall. This is where I can come in and select the wall. So whenever you do the missing wall, it is going to kind of just assume that you want the entire wall gone. So we're kind of breaking up the space here. Now, just like with our door, that's when I'm always going to hit the little gear right there to be able to hit the edit pencil. And this is probably going to be the more useful tool for you to be able to say, how long is this actual missing wall? So if I wanted to, I could always say that, hey, maybe this is only, 5 foot wide. So I'm just going to come in here, select that, hit save. And since I said I wanted to start at 0, it just put that right there at the end. And I can always move this around, as needed. So you can see, very easy for me to be able to add that additional information. All right, so now I've got my kitchen with my door, my missing wall, and now I want to come here into my living room. Now, with this living room, I'm going to say that maybe it's a little bit different of a house. I live in a very fancy 1970s kind of ranch style home, so not everything is built super square and precise. So I've kind of got a funky living room. So what I can do is if you ever see that, hey, maybe there's not a room that kind of fits into that just kind of general RM kind of mold, what I can do is I can actually start building out kind of some, custom shape rooms. So to be able to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and just select my line tool here. So that line tool is going to be your best friend for when you want to be able to start building things out. Now, one of the things that I'm going to tell you when you are starting to build rooms in your sketch, you want to kind of build them independent of each other and then kind of bring them together once you have the room built. What I normally tell people is you don't necessarily always want to kind of start by saying, okay, I'm going to tap here, then here, then here, and kind of manipulate it that way. It doesn't give you the best use case. So the best thing I can tell you to do is build each room independently and then bring them together, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna build kind of maybe a trapezoid rhombus kind of thing. I wasn't very good at geometry, so my shapes aren't always the best. So, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by hitting that line tool and start just building out a room. So all I have to do is once I have that line tool selected is literally on the sketch, I can start to tap and it's going to place this little red dot here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start building out the shape that I want. So I'm going to just come in here and maybe start saying, all right, let's add that. Maybe we're going to do something kind of funky like that. Add it over there. And now to kind of close this out, I'm going to come back to that red dot, okay? So that is now going to kind of give us our room here. So makes it pretty easy for me to be able to do it. Now from here, this is where I can really start to get into what I want to do with my dimensioning. So, I can use my finger to be able to come in here and make the changes that I need for this particular room. So should make it fairly easy for me to make whatever changes that I want. Now, one of the other things that I kind of show people, and it's probably not the best example of this, just because it's pretty square, is that I do have the ability, if I am building this out, and maybe I kind of did a real wonky job, and let me maybe build just another room real quick to maybe demonstrate this a little bit better. So you can kind of see a little bit of a funky Comadina right there. So what I can actually do is there is this little button right here that's this kind of square. So if I want to make this kind of a square angle, what I can always do is I can always click that option, and you can see that it's taken that kind of broken line that I had and made it just a square line. So it makes it pretty easy for me to be able to kind of shore up some of the information that I have for this particular room. Now, what I can start to do here is, let's say that I kind of want to start building these rooms together. So if I have this room here that's kind of this trapezoid kind of shape, and I want to kind of attach it to this next room right here, what I can start to do is I can just start to pull this room right up. So what I would do is I would kind of overlay the two shapes here. And this way it would start to kind of tell me, okay, this is what this would really start to look like if we were kind of building this out. So based upon that missing wall right there, it would just assume that right now this room kind of cuts in kind of weird, and maybe it's a missing wall to the outside. Maybe I love nature. But from here, I can always come in here and once again, kind of expand this out, as needed as well. So it makes it pretty simple for me to be able to do this. Now, when you are kind of adding rooms together, this is kind of the option that you really want to see. And the reason why you want to see it this way is you kind of want the rooms to kind of connect together. Now, one of the things that I've seen people do and make the mistake is accidentally come in here and start things like this. So if you see that your rooms are kind of overlapping, you see these red lines, I'm going to call them the red lines of death. Reason why I'm going to call it that is because if we see that, that can really start to screw up our equipment calculations. And it can also screw up, when we're getting readings, just because the system kind of doesn't know what to do with it. So best practice here is always to just make sure that we're not really doing anything with the, make sure the red lines are kind of going away more than anything else, okay? So should make it pretty simple to be able to start to add these different rooms in. Now, one of the things that I would maybe want to do here is I'm going to kind of disconnect maybe this room here. So let's say that I had my two rooms here. So I've got kind of my weird rhombus room, and maybe I just want to add in another missing wall here just to, or actually, I'll do a missing wall, just kind of do that whole area is missing. So what I want to do is, let's say that maybe I've kind of started to build this out and there's this kind of weird area here, but I know that there's just a little hallway right here, but I don't want to have to, kind of monkey a shape in there. Well, what I can do is I'm actually going to come back down here to the room option right here. And we also have this option here called filler room. So what that filler room allows me to do is kind of select an area and start kind of building a custom kind of shape room. So just wherever that little black line is going to be the room that it kind of creates. So what I would be able to do is, if I kind of wanted just this, little room here, now I would probably come in and, maybe just bring that in a little bit. You can see that it's kind of got that different room name. So kind of allows me to, not have to make things super precise as I'm adding things in there. It's truly a filler room. Now, one of the other things that I would tell you to do as we're starting to build these rooms out is that one of the things that you probably see here is that right now I've got 3 different rooms named room. What we don't want to happen is to have these multiple rooms named room, just because, once again, that becomes very confusing once we start getting into when we are doing equipment placement, when we're doing moisture points. There's just so many things that can go wrong when we're just leaving things named as room. So what I always want to make sure I'm doing is coming in and making sure that I'm naming the rooms whatever it is. Now, it doesn't have to actually be named what's in that list. The nice thing about it that is that if you have kind of a weird kind of name for a room, I know like in Florida, a lot of people call things like the 3 or 4 seasons room. So if I want to call this my 4 season room, I can always, have that as an actual room name. So makes it kind of very, very easy for me to be able to do, okay? All right, so I've kind of built out this room. Now, you can see I've kind of got this malignant room over here. So what I can always do is, just like with anything else, if I actually tap on the room, I should now be able to see this little trash can, and I can always get rid of anything. And MICA is also going to just kind of go, hey, are you sure you kind of want to do that? Because there could be potentials of, we're deleting something. So it just kind of gives you a little bit of a warning. All right, so I've kind of got my different rooms set up here. Now, when I'm looking at this, I'm also going to tell you to kind of look over here on the left-hand side. So one of the reasons why I kind of tell you to look over here is that right now I've built all of this kind of on the first level. So the reason why I bring that up is because, if maybe we had a 2-story home that maybe the water started upstairs and, maybe came downstairs. So I want to be able to kind of show what the different levels kind of look like. So what I would be able to do is if I want to add, maybe a second floor, all I would have to do is I can come up here and just hit the little plus sign right there and then just name the floor. So just like with the rooms, we kind of have a preset list in here, but you can always name it whatever you want. So now I can start adding some information to my second floor, or if I need to go back to my main level, I can always do that as well. Now, one of the other things that's nice, and this is probably not a great example of this, but one of the other things that I can also do here is, let's say that, for example, maybe we're working in an apartment complex. So maybe I've got 3 different kind of apartments kind of stacked on top of each other. And I want to say, okay, here are the 3 different levels that I have. And it's, basically that cookie cutter, module type of home. So I don't necessarily want to have to recreate the wheel here on every floor. So what I can actually do is I can actually come in here and hit where it says copy floor plan. And then what this would allow me to do is if I go to another floor, I can hit paste, and you can see that it pastes in what I did. So essentially, you build it once, and then it's going to start to allow you just to paste it in here again. Now, the one thing that does not copy over is going to be any openings or doors, just because those things could be different just depending on the layout of the home. So, so instead of having to redo the whole room, you would just have to add those kind of small details in there to make sure that everything kind of matches. So that's kind of MICA's fail safe here to be able to kind of say what's going on. Just because, for example, maybe it's kind of the same general layout here, but let's say that maybe in the kitchen right here, maybe there's a small area right here, maybe for a breakfast nook. So it's not necessarily a different room, but maybe there's just kind of a wall right there. So what I can actually do to be able to add that wall, I'm just going to hit the little wall button right there. And then literally all I would have to do is in the area here, tap where, kind of out in the sketch I want to add it, and add that wall. So it makes it very easy for me to be able to move that wall kind of as needed. So just like with anything else, if I needed to make it, a little bit longer, just because it kind of assumes how long you want it, I can just kind of manipulate this how I want. So you can see, very, very simple for me to be able to start adding those different dimensions here. All right. Okay, so another question that we have is, I have trouble building stairs on first and second basement floor on same space, and you can build one on top of the other, so on. So can you build one with a staircase? So with stairs, let's see. I know stairs are kind of always a tricky thing, but I guess I am trying to figure out the best way to maybe think through stairs. So as you guys can see, there are kind of two different kind of versions of stairs. I guess there's the vertical stairs, horizontal stairs of how we are starting to build this out. So my question kind of is that with stairs, I'm guessing you're saying kind of a staircase a little bit that looks maybe a little bit like that, I'm going to guess, potentially, building those kind of stairs out. It's part of the reason I asked. So one of the things with stairs is like they can't exist kind of within a room. So like if I do that, it's going to kind of freak out and say, that's not really what we want. So what I can kind of do with stairs is I can build rooms kind of around stairs. So for example, if I kind of wanted to build a room kind of around these stairs, I would probably come in here and start potentially with a room maybe that looks like that. So as I'm building this out, what this is going to kind of allow me to do is I would probably come in here and potentially kind of move this around to kind of get it to where everything maybe exists kind of around it. So I'm guessing that maybe there's a staircase or something. Well, probably helps if was to undo that. Probably widen that a little bit. But essentially, so what I will do is I am going to come and add maybe an offset right there. You can see that I've kind of added those kind of stairs in there. So kind of running out of real estate of what it is I'm looking for. But essentially, that's kind of how you would build out kind of a staircase here. So this way, I have the stairs, but then I have the room kind of built around those stairs. So for me, probably the easiest way to do it would probably be just to add a new level into the loft. So for example, a level doesn't necessarily have to be a new floor. So if I had kind of an area underneath the stairs that I wanted to say was affected, I could just add a new level in here that, you know, either I can come here or I can say under stairs, hit save, and then I can just put in a room for that particular area. So if I wanted to, I could just come in here and say, okay, I know that, let's say, stairs kind of resembled that. So I'll just come in here, turn that maybe 90 degrees, you know, actually get the measurements of what the stairs kind of are to be able to take the effect there. So now whenever I am, you know, putting in my affected areas and all of that, there's an area in here in damage information that I would be able to come in here and put kind of the, you know, underneath the stairs. And so to me, that would be the best way to be able to do that. So that's a good question. And you can always add multiple levels into the same chamber. So if I just had it doesn't always have to be on the same level. So if we're getting that kind of information around, that would really help you do that.